We need to have space held for us. And when I say space held for us, I mean someone energetically saying, you get to fall apart right now.
Mm.
You don't have to hold it together right now.
Hey, friend. I'm so excited because I'm doing something that I have not done before, which is that I'm actually going to share with you a podcast that I was on. It's Sherianna Boyle, and I've had her on this podcast, and then I was on her podcast. She just did such an incredible job that I was really happy with it and wanted to share it on my podcast. Her podcast is called, how many times can you say the word podcast? Her podcast is called Just Ask Spirit. She asked that we, for the integrity of the piece, keep the commercials in. So the commercials that you're going to hear, it's short, don't worry, are the commercials from her actual podcast. Without further ado, we're going to talk all the things, healing work, breathwork, Akashic Records, all the spiritual goodies. And I can't wait for you to hear. What if I told you that the key to deep peace, healing, and clarity is already within you, just waiting to be unlocked? Welcome to Mountain Breathwork Infused with Reiki. This isn't just breathwork. This isn't just Reiki. It's a powerful, transformative experience. A journey into your own energy, your own breath, your own healing. Your first session right now is donation based because I want you to feel it, to truly experience the shift. But here's where the magic happens. You'll release stress, stuck energy, and emotional weight that's been holding you back. You'll feel lighter, freer, and deeply connected to yourself, your intuition, and what really matters to you. You'll tap into clarity, creativity, and a profound sense of peace that carries into your daily life. And when you commit to the journey, a 10-session package for $1,011 takes you deeper, unlocking lasting transformation, breakthroughs, and expansion. Available over Zoom, whether it's just you and a partner, so powerful, your family, so powerful, or just any small group that you're intimate with and you want to work with. You will be guided into a space of safety, release, and renewal. Hosting a retreat, I would love to bring this healing to your community. It's time. Give yourself a deep breath. Say yes to your expansion. Message me to book your first session today. Siri at sageandblushwellness.com. Check the show notes.
Siri Baruc Thornton, welcome to Just Ask Spirit.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to share you with my audience. You have, boy, quite the resume here. You're born in Boston in an ashram, an American Sikh yoga ashram, which, and you grew up immersed in Reiki, channeling, and in healing communities in Vermont. You've also had a fair share, 25 years in professional film, television actor. You've appeared in over 30 featured films, commercials throughout your 20s and 40s. So are you out of your 40s? I'm
not
doing
quite,
the math.
Not quite. I'm 46.
I was going to say, where are we? Okay.
Yeah, where are we?
Where are we? So you learned meditation, clairvoyant practices. You've had some pretty amazing teachers, and now you are the CEO and founder of Mountain Breathwork, teacher, Akashic Records teacher, Reiki master of the masters. And you and I met on your podcast, and you live as a Buddhist practitioner in Portland, Oregon. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just outside of it, right on the border. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So here we are. We're on Just Ask Spirit, and breathing. I mean, such an important part, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah. So important.
In terms of connecting to spirit. And I was just saying before you got on about the importance of learning to connect to your spiritual team, because it teaches you about yourself. And I was mentioning how it's kind of like if you didn't know a grandmother, but you were curious about a grandmother.
Yeah.
And then the more you got to know, oh, this is what she liked, and this is what she did, and this were her talents and her gifts. And you would be learning simultaneously about yourself. And do you feel that happens with breathing? What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
I love that question. Thank you so much, Sherianna. This is beautiful because there's so many inroads to learning about ourselves. And I was just doing a Frida Kahlo inspired mountain breathwork infused with Reiki class. And she was all about understanding the world through her self portraits and through her self discovery. So her inroad through discovering herself and understanding herself and her history and her culture was through the mirror and her paintbrush, right? And so the paintbrush for me is the breath, has become the breath. Of course, we all breathe, but how are we breathing? And so we know that if we're feeling anxious, that our breath, like for me, I struggle with anxiety. So that's why breath work has been so transformational for me. Because now not only can I use it to put me back into my body, get embodied, be present, feel so expansive and expressed and authentic and just me, but I also, yes, it's a roadmap to discovery of self, but also it's allowed me this great gift of being able to be a safe space for others in my family, in my community, in my service, in the way that I show up for people, because we have little trauma, big trauma in our body, as you know, and we've talked about. And we just absorb. We're like absorbing machines all day long, whether we know it or not. Like, you know, we're so sensitive as these people who can talk to spirit, and everything that comes in to our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul needs a way to be processed back out, right? And if we don't have a way to process it back out, and everyone has their own way that works for them, and I say try every flavor, because there's going to be certain things that are going to work in some ways for you and certain things that are going to work when you have less time in your day. I just this morning received facilitation of breath work. That's so important, as what I say, space holders need space holders, right? So it's like the more you're caring for others, and we're all in some way, we're all caretakers, whether we have a pet or we're just taking care of our neighbors' kids, you know, our parents, our children. It's like at work, if we, you know, we're caretaking people at work, because we're all caretakers in some way, in some capacity with our families, we need to have space held for us. And when I say space held for us, I mean someone energetically saying, you get to fall apart right now.
Mm.
You don't have to hold it together right now. You get to cry, you get to scream, because that's really important. I do primal sounding. Not all breath work includes primal sounding, but I really help people. I hold their hand energetically, hold their hand and coach them through the primal sounding, which is just like a moaning, toning, groaning, sighing, screaming, expressing into a pillow or into their mattress or into the crease of their arm. And it's because we're an instrument, and so we need to vibrate out, right? Like vibrate out whatever is in the body so that we can be present and we can enjoy our life. And on my podcast, The Authentic Creative, the tagline is expanding our capacity to feel good. And this is, if we want to feel good, you know, we don't have a problem suffering, right? Like we don't have a problem feeling shitty. We have a
Mm.
problem allowing ourselves to receive the feeling of joy and goodness for extended
So
periods
true.
of time, right? Like we are addicted to cortisol. It is a drip, and the cortisol comes from the stressful thoughts and the stressful things that we take in. So if you've
But
got the TV on in the background, right, you're taking that in. You might not consciously be aware of it. If you're listening to the radio in the car, you're taking just right. Like if you're listening to this on a radio, you're taking this in. It's either healing you or it's stressing you. So you're either making I wasn't expecting you to talk about this, but sex hormones or stress hormones, right? You're either making one or the other. And when I say sex hormones, I just mean hormones that help you, like endorphins and dopamine. Well, not dopamine, that's, that's like a hit, but like the serotonin and the endorphins that help you to just kind of feel good. So this
Mm,
is another word for this, right? Is nervous system regulation.
yeah.
So in terms of your question of, how do you figure out, coming back to discovering yourself? I have personally found breathwork to be the most luscious, enjoyable, and vital way to discover myself, of like my authentic, true self, of who I am, how I'm going to show up in the world.
Mm. I love what you said. I mean, one thing I love about the breath is it's portable.
Yeah.
It goes
Wherever
where
you
you
go.
go. Yeah, you can't use the excuse I left it at home
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. Like, oh, well, if you could say I forgot to breathe, which is what
or I
we,
forgot my therapy appointment.
yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's such a good point.
It's
Yes.
it's with you all the time, but
Yes.
you do need to
Yes.
learn how to use it. I'm also trained in breath work. I haven't infused in the way that you infuse, but I do include it in emotional detox kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
definitely with the connecting to spirit. I love the way you said, though, someone holding space for you to just let go and fall
Hmm.
apart. I think that's kind of what stands out to me when you talk. And I think that's when people listening, well, what do you mean by breath work? It's different than like breath work in a yoga class.
Right. That's right.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying it's much more therapeutic in nature?
Well, yeah.
Or
So
can
the
be.
type of breath work that I facilitate is called triactive breath, and it's all in and out of the mouth. So for the most part, in your private session or in your group session, you're breathing in and out of your mouth, just your mouth. And in yoga, obviously, we're breathing just with our mouths closed. So it's a very different kind of breath. The breathing in and out of the mouth actually helps you to activate whatever's inside. It kind of actually helps you to lean into and churn up and get the storm going. Instead of with meditation, it's an active meditation, but with meditation, in some kind of meditations, which is beautiful, and we do that at the end in the shavasana, you're trying to calm down, trying to calm down, trying to calm down. With this triactive, all breathing in and out of the mouth, we're actually not trying so much to calm down, but when I'm holding space for someone, I'm creating safe space for them to allow, like I said, to fall apart. Allow it to get stormy. Allow it to come up. Allow it to be emotional. Allow yourself to vibrate the sounds out. Allow yourself to be disciplined with the breath, this cyclical, conscious, connected breath that I teach you how to do, so that you can bring it up and out, and also that you can, again, like process it. And so then by the time I take you through this epic journey that's really like a movie of your life, and it is different every time, right? By the end of it, you do feel this complete sense of calm because you've processed it. You've let it come all the way through.
There were things, when I did a guided breathwork session, like you're such as what you're talking about. Uh, Boy, did I mean, I went to places I didn't even, I was stuffing, processing things from another time. Let's put it that
Yes,
way.
yes,
Another
yes.
lifetime.
It can be. It can
and
be. Yes.
that was my first session. And I remember thinking, whew, like I had to, I was like, I looked like a mess after that session.
Mm.
It's so,
Yeah.
and I always say, healing, sometimes your nose runs and your eyes water. And I mean, when you let it all out, you let it all out kind of thing.
Yes. And I think that so many people are so afraid to do that. And there wasn't permission to do that because it was a nuisance, or it wasn't, accepted, or be quiet, go to your room. And the thing is, first of all, you're your highest authority. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's allowed, and you are given space and you're given permission to have the experience you just described. And yeah, it can be clearing past lives. It can be clearing trauma from the womb, when you were in your mother's womb. Because what was she going through when she had you in there? She was having
Mhm.
all sorts of things happening, going on. And so you absorb that. So that's really like the opportunity is you can clear all the way back to being in the womb. You can clear all the way back through past lives. You can clear just what happened in your day to day. And then other people's energies that we pick up, other people's emotions, other people's psychic stuff that we pick up. We're going to clear that
Well,
too.
we know emotions are contagious. That is for sure. And I don't have the research at my fingertips, but there is research out there of social media being contagious. So all we have to do is look at, and and there's people, all sorts
Yes.
of emotions on social media. There's some
Yes.
people crying, there's some people happy, there's some people pissed off, there's a lot
During the
of
LA fires, I was like, oh my goodness, I need extra double breath work.
yeah.
Seeing all of the people's houses burning down, it was like every time I open social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be quite intense. And it's so nice the way these things are available. And some people listening here on the radio or later in the podcast channel. So those of you who don't catch every show, remember Just Us Spirit. You can subscribe. There was the word to the Just Us Spirit podcast, and that way you can get the show later if you miss it live here on the radio. And I just think it's so wonderful to have options because I know a lot of people are frustrated with their feeling their mental health is really, they need support. I think, especially our younger population, of wondering how to handle the stressors that they face, and the elderly population. And a lot of people are like, I don't know where to go and turn to, and they don't think about something this as an option. So I want to
Yeah.
invite people to know that you have a website. Did you want to share that?
Sageandblushwellness.com. You can also email me if you want to, Siri at sageandblushwellness.com. I'm on Instagram at Siri Baruc Thornton. I love holding safe space. I love facilitating breath work and I infuse it with Reiki. So that's my specific flavor. When I say try all the flavors, if you've tried one breath work, I really highly recommend trying various people's breath work. I've worked with so many different facilitators and they all give me something different. So when I facilitate, you're going to have a really unique experience, partly because I'm infusing that session with Reiki, partly because of the primal sounding, partly because of just my specific way of holding space.
How did living in an ashram, let's talk about that. So you
Sure.
were born in an ashram in Boston. You grew up. How has that influenced you? I mean, what was that like? That's not a typical upbringing.
I believe that my soul specifically chose to enter into the world through a home birth at home on a futon with these very spiritually oriented parents because I've always been a seeker, you know? I've always been interested in spirit, in the divine, in source, in evolution, in human revolution, I call it in my Buddhist practice. So my soul chose. And my mom says that when she was meditating, I mean, they chanted and meditated and did yoga, and it was very devotional, very strict. I was actually only there for 2-ish years, and then we left and I grew up in Vermont and New York. But my parents, their nature is to be leaders, their nature is to be seekers, their nature is to be of service and to help community. So that is something that I aligned with and that I've carried on. And that's like big in my heart, is to be of service and to help people to heal. My sensitivity and my empathy and my wanting to serve is my superpower. It can be hard to be someone who feels so big, but it brings a lot of compassion. So I think that's a gift. And for
Do
other
you
people that are like us, I think that's a gift for them too, is for us to remember that.
Okay, so do you feel that the as you move energy in the way that you do and growing up the way that you did in these communities with the chanting and the breathing and the yoga and all of that, do you think that was partially why you are more sensitive to energy? So basically, what I'm getting across is people have to understand. I always say with spiritual work comes responsibility.
Mm.
And that, because you will go up in vibration. I'll just speak for me. I know I'm more sensitive because my vibration is going, but I'm also stronger.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
you couple it. There's a balance when you get strong in your sense of self. So it works out. It works out okay. So don't be scared,
Yes.
everybody. Like, oh, I'm going to become more sensitive. I don't want. I'm already taking in enough. No, you'll. With sensitivity comes strength, and if you
Yeah.
do it through the spiritual pathway.
Yes, that's a great distinction. I don't necessarily know that I'm more sensitive because I do these practices. I think I do these practices because I'm sensitive.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm a big feeler. And so the big feelers out there, you know that you need ways and tools to process the big feels.
And so do the non-feelers. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah, the non-feelers, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's two things. One is in human design is certain people create and emanate emotion. That's like their energy works that way, right? So I'm in human design, I'm an emotional authority, so I'm literally emanating emotion. Where other people like projectors, for example, my husband's not emanating emotion. And also, he does need to process even more so because he's not necessarily as aware, like you just said, of what he's feeling when he's feeling it in the moment. He's not as aware of it. I'll understand what's going on with him, but 3 days later, he'll be like, yes, he's getting better. But 3 days
Okay.
later, he'll be like, oh, yeah, I guess I was
He's
angry.
still integrating in that. So it's 3 days later, and then that will become 2 days, and eventually that'll become one day, and then eventually it'll be within the hour. Right. And that's what integration looks like. Like it'll be all at once kind of thing. But
Yeah.
everybody starts that way. Are there any final words that you want to share, Siri, as we come to the end of this podcast? What do you want to say to people out there?
Yeah, well, I'll just say what's potent for me in this moment is one of my closest, dearest friends from high school. His mother unexpectedly passed away the other day. And so that's hit me hard.
Mhm.
And the thing is, there's birth, there's suffering, there's old age, and there's death, right? And so in Buddhism, those are like the four sufferings, and we cannot avoid them, right? So I know you know this, and we all intrinsically know this. We cannot avoid the sufferings of life, but we can choose, like you were talking about, the responsibility of how we're going to respond. And so I know immediately, oh, this is like, so if I was not aware of what I'm aware of, I might kind of bury it in all sorts of ways. And then, you know, drink or scroll or, use coping mechanisms. And then years later realize I've got so much trauma I don't even know what to do with. But because I'm in these practices and I have my ways of processing, I'm doing it in real time and it's gonna run its course so quickly. I'm going to
Yeah.
feel it. I'm going to feel all of it. I'm going to get space holders for me, and then I'm going to process it out. And then I'm going to be able to show up and serve others.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Siri. Thank you. I wish we had more time, but our time is running out. But I do love having you on the show. Again, she's at sageandblushwellness.com. Of course, it'll be in the show notes. If you subscribe to the podcast, then you will see those show notes. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Just Ask Spirit. That's all we have today.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Siri. And remember, everyone, your emotions matter. Processing them matters more. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. To explore Sherianna's programs, services, memberships, and upcoming emotional detox and Just Ask Spirit retreats, visit SheriannaBoyle.com. That's SheriannaBoyle.com. Your next step toward emotional and spiritual renewal.
What's the thing that's never getting better? The thing that keeps you up at night? The loop you can't seem to break free from? Bring it to our Akashic record reading session. This isn't just a reading. It's a sacred conversation with your soul, with your team, your masters, teachers, and loved ones and guides. a place where the deepest parts of you are seen, heard, and understood. What happens in a session? You receive the clarity you've been searching for. You get the validation for what you've been feeling but couldn't quite name. You experience an energy clearing, releasing lower vibrational and stuck emotions so you can move forward lighter, freer, and more aligned. What if the answers you've been seeking are already waiting for you? In this space, you can finally breathe, release, and receive the relief you've been craving. One session or a package are available over Zoom from anywhere in the world. It's time to lift the weight off your heart. Say yes to clarity. Say yes to relief. Message me to book your Akashic Record reading today. Link in the show notes. Thank you for being a part of our journey today. As we expand our capacity to feel good, we're creating a community that celebrates authenticity and creativity. If this episode resonated with you, please go ahead and follow us and leave a 5-star review. It's great karma points. Your support helps us reach others who are seeking the same connection and inspiration that you are. If you love anything that you heard, text this episode to a friend or share it on Instagram and tag me at Siri Baruc Thornton. I'd love to repost and connect with you. Together, we can build a space where everyone feels empowered to explore their true selves. So until next time, keep embracing your creativity and slowly expanding your capacity to feel good, one breath at a time.